Welcome, Pewter Report readers and listeners, to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast, Energized by Celsius. I am John Ledyard from pewterreport.com. Along with me today, Scott Reynolds, back from suspension, from pewterreport.com.
I'm working, man.
The last time I said you were suspended, we got like a couple people that watched the show after, and they were like, why was Scott suspended? They were like, thought it was serious. It's been too long since we did that joke, I think.
Yeah. That's kind of like a running gag for our old time back when we were the Pewter Nation podcast. Whenever somebody wasn't on the podcast, they were naturally suspended. So we've retired the bit. I guess we're bringing it back. But
I guess we are. I fell into that one.
John, I'm ready to talk running backs today. Let's talk some.
I know. You are invigorated about this running back discussion, potential rookie. You actually need to sort out your rookie draft crushes right now, Scott. You have a lot of love is in the air. I mean, you've got a lot right now. You are playing the field pretty hard with this running back group, and so we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the Bucs' current free agent situation, in other words, who the Bucs have at the running back position that are free agents, and kind of some options that they might, including Leonard Fournette, what his future might look like with the team, the odds of him coming back. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about other free agent options. Could the Bucs double dip? Could it be a free agent option and a draft pick at the running back group this offseason? We've got a lot of running back chatter coming your way today, and it's all brought to you by our friends at Celsius. Chug,
John,
chug.
You got me in mid-chug. Celsius orange today, and why not? It's my favorite flavor.
Great flavor. I mean, orange, blueberry, pomegranate. Orange is like one of the originals, and it's still one of your favorites. But yeah, Celsius, man, we cannot say enough good things about them on the show, as we always say, from the variety of flavors, but also just the fact that they are able to create a healthy drink that tastes that good and gives you the energy bump that you need. It's pretty rare. I didn't think that was going to happen. I didn't think it was going to be one I would like.
And no crash. And the reason why is no sugar, no preservatives.
Yep.
Celsius powers active lives every day with essential functional energy. Most important thing I'm going to say today is, where can you find it? Go to pewterreport.com. Click on those Celsius banners. They'll take you to Amazon. You can buy them in bulk. You can even do subscribe and save money that way. If you're not sure where Celsius is sold around you, they got a great little store locator on Celsius.com. Make sure you go there, click on that, put in your address, and all of a sudden, all these convenience stores, in stores like Target and grocery stores, they'll pop up and they'll tell you exactly where you can get Celsius in a location near you.
Yeah, absolutely. Celsius, good stuff as always. The Bucs running back room, not so much this past season, Scott. I did think that they held up their end of the deal down the stretch and in the playoffs well enough, largely thanks to Leonard Fournette. But at the same time, yes, Leonard. But we might not get to hear that again, Scott. That would be sad. In some ways, I don't want this team to spend any cap space on Leonard Fournette for sure. But the reality is we would miss out on one of our favorite segments from in season. So I guess as it stands right now, Scott, knowing the very little that we do at this point in time, do you think Leonard Fournette is back with the Bucs next season?
I don't, because he is not a priority to this team. I mean, this team is trying to figure out a way to keep Levante David, to keep Shaq Barrett, to re-sign Ndamukong Suh, and I think Rob Gronkowski's in the mix right there. And obviously this guy named Chris Godwin, who's going to be your franchise player, Buccaneer fans. Those are the top priorities. And that's a lot of money. That's a lot of guys they have to focus on. And I think Leonard Fournette is down the pecking order, as he should be, as a running back who split carries with Ronald Jones. Now, Jones is entering the fourth and final year of his rookie contract. So running back does become a pressing need. The good news for the Buccaneers is there's a plethora of running backs that really can fit this team to a T in terms of what they need, which is a pass catcher out of the running back position. We saw them sign LaShawn McCoy. They found out there's not much gas left in the tank. I think that prompted them to get Leonard Fournette at the start of the season after Jacksonville cut him. and it was a good pickup. He was an okay third down back, had some good blitz pickups, some not so good blitz pickups, had some good catches out of the backfield, some drops out of the backfield. Ronald Jones never proved that he could be that third down back in Tampa, so they need that. And there's a lot of guys in free agency that can probably not share the load with Ronald Jones like Fournette did, in really being not just a third down back, but a 1, 2, and 3 down back for the Bucs. But the good news, John, there's a lot of running backs in this draft class that can, if they're drafted, share that load and maybe eventually replace Ronald Jones after this year, because you don't pay running backs.
Right, you don't. And I think that it's clearly the position of need. Now, we'll see what happens in free agency. I don't think it's the most important position, even, compared to getting a third edge rusher or something like that. But I do think it's, when you look at the roster, it's like one of the few spots where you're like, I really don't know. I wouldn't even say who's going to start. Okay, maybe that's Ronald Jones, but first time catching the podcast live, Anthony says, Bucs fan from Wichita, Kansas. I feel feed on the salt of Kansas City's tears, as do we. Right. But I don't think that the running back position necessarily is the most important, but it is the one where I would say I'm not really even sure who plays the majority of snaps there going next season. Yes, everyone's going to say Ronald Jones would have ran for 1,000 yards if he hadn't got hurt. And maybe that is enough to get him to play the majority of snaps, depending on where and what pedigree of back they're able to bring in. We don't know that this offseason. But I definitely know this. There is no plan on the Bucs' part right now. They're not settled on Ronald Jones playing the majority of snaps right now. It may pan out that way. Maybe there's a run on running backs. They don't take one in the first round, and they, again, like last year, they get pushed in the third round. They didn't have one, so they're grabbing a guy in the third round that's going to play a small role. They sign somebody like Duke Johnson. We'll talk about in a second. And Ronald Jones ends up shouldering most of the snap counts because of that. But I know that right now they are not looking at the running back looking, oh, Ronald Jones is going to play like 80% of our snaps next season. That's just not how they're looking at it.
It's not what Bruce Arians wants to do. If Ronald Jones was a younger David Johnson, it could be that 3-down back, not third down, but a 3-down back, a guy that can run it on first and second down, catch it on third downs, then maybe he's that guy. But we know he's not that guy. And as a result, you saw over the 2 years that Bruce Arians has been in Tampa, John, it is a 2-back system. Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones in 2019, and Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette last year. Eric Cullison, it would be interesting to see if the Bucs go after Marlon Mack if they don't draft a running back early or don't re-sign Fournette. The interesting thing about Mack is not only the fact that he's a USF product right here in Tampa Bay, they really liked him in the 2017 draft class. Matter of fact, 2 of those backs they liked in the middle of the draft, Kareem Hunt out of Toledo, who was my draft crush that year, and they ended
Me too.
That worked out pretty well. But then Marlon Mack, who I believe went in the 4th round to Indianapolis, and of course the Buccaneers. There was a lot of great running backs that year in that draft class. Nick Chubb, a whole bunch of guys, but the Buccaneers waited too long, and they had to settle for Jeremy McNichols out of Boise State, Dirk Cutter's alma mater. Boy, was he a bust.
That position has been elusive for Jason Light. As good as well as he's drafted, that position and kicker for a while were really elusive spots. Every GM kind of has those. I mean, Ronald Jones, certainly from where he started, it looked like he was never going to get to the point where even he is now. And, I think, like I said, I've always said on the show, he's a talented player, more talented runner than Leonard Fournette for sure. I would rather have the ball in the hands of Ronald Jones. If it wasn't for again, it's the ball. Can you get the ball in his hands? Not just fumbles. I know he had some issues with that early in the season, but he's just not a very reliable football player. He doesn't run routes well. He doesn't get his head around to find the football. He drops the football a lot. You can't count on him all the time. You can't count on him in pass protection to do the right things. And going into year one, coming out of year one, that's not that big of a deal. Coming into year 4, that's a big deal. That's something you got to plan for.
It really is. And just to kind of follow up on Marlon Mack, the problem with him is great player, but coming off an Achilles injury. And that happened right around the start of the season. I think September 18th, 20th, something like that for Indianapolis, if I remember correctly. So basically his contract year was spent rehabbing an Achilles injury. And that's a little tricky. You don't want to sit there and throw a bunch of money at Marlon Mack in that situation. He's probably going to have to sign a 1-year prove-it deal to prove that Achilles is 100%. And some guys, they do fine. They come back from the Achilles injury. And, of course, that's Tampa Bay's hope with O.J. Howard, the tight end, who's entering his 5th-year option after suffering an Achilles injury against the Chargers back in week 4, week 3, week 4,
Yep.
something like that. Week 4, yeah. But sometimes the players can pop those again. So I think if Marlon Mack is on the Bucs radar, it would be after the initial wave of free agency, and then really in a situation where he is maybe one of the better guys out there left, and probably have to sign a 1-year prove-it deal. But there's other free agent running backs out there, John, that I think the Buccaneers are going to target. Shall we hit on some of them?
Yeah, we will hit on some of those. So we established, just for real quick recap, that Leonard Fournette, we don't think he's going to be back, but at the same time, we recognize the fact that there is a weird market out there in free agency. And also Leonard Fournette continues to, on social media, I think Mike Evans went live on IG the other day. Leonard Fournette was like, let's do it again. Let's run it back. And I think he said run it back, by the way, not me. So, but he was saying that. And so it was, so it's interesting. I mean, it could mean nothing, obviously, but it does seem funny that Fournette is so intent on coming back when it seemed like he really wanted to, a bigger role would be kind of a thing that he would want at his age and his pedigree. And I think he would get it if he went somewhere else. So I don't know. Again, if you're the Bucs, I don't really think it's a big priority, because I think you can upgrade for I would assume cheaper, moving forward. So Scott Federico wants to know, any chance CJ Prosise can contribute as a third down back pass catcher? Yeah. So it's interesting they've kept Prosise around, but he just can't stay healthy. And so, I mean, it's a possibility. Sure. It's like a TJ Logan. If he surprises you and stays healthy, and, maybe, I mean, there's athleticism's always been there for Prosise. There's been a couple flashes in the NFL, but he's never been a pure running back, and he's not really a wide receiver, even though he's a good pass catching back. Yeah. So it's kind of like, where do you get him on the field? Is he better at pass catching and running routes and protection, especially protection, than other guys? And the answer has consistently been no. So it would be a surprise, but I won't totally roll it out. And he's definitely a guy that I'll have my eye on if he makes it to camp with the team for sure.
Yeah, he really hasn't done much in the NFL. He had 2 starts in his rookie season back in Seattle when he was a 3rd-round pick out of Notre Dame, I believe. But, you look at him in that year, 172 yards, 1 touchdown on the ground, 17 catches, 208 yards. That's a healthy 12.2 average. But only played in 6 games with 2 starts due to injury. And then you look, and he didn't have a single start after that. And in his time in Seattle, he played in 5 games in 2017, 5 games in 2018, 9 games in 2019. But really just as a role player, as a bit player. I mean, 72 yards in 2019 and a touchdown. That's his best rushing performance since his rookie season. And he just hasn't been able to, like you said, stay healthy and really find his niche in Seattle or Houston, where he played last year.
Right. Jack Barrett mentions a good thing here. Same with Rex Burkhead, coming off an ACL tear with the ability to stay healthy. You've talked about this a little bit, Scott, but you just don't think with the ACL tear, even if he played with Brady, it just might not be the best option for the Bucs, or an option they're even that interested in.
Yeah, and he's 31 too. I think it's different. Yeah. He's 26, 27 maybe, but he's 31. He does have a history of injuries, and then you've got the ACL tear, and it happened late in the season, John. That's the thing. It happened at the end of November. So, that certainly would rule him out until training camp, maybe at the very earliest, in which he gets on the field. And then sometimes players, they come storming right back. We saw that with Adrian Peterson with like a 2,000-yard season after an ACL tear, but he's a freak. I just don't know, because sometimes, and we've seen it here in Tampa with Quan Alexander coming off an ACL tear, sometimes it takes players a full year, and then the next year is where they get back to their normal self, right? Whether mental or physical, whatever it is. So I just don't know that you want to take a chance on a Rex Burkhead, even though he's got the relationship and history with Brady, because there's 2 other guys out there. Yeah. Dion Lewis with the Giants, who caught a touchdown pass on Devin White in that Monday night game, John. He's also 31, played with the Patriots, does have, I think, 6 years with Brady there. Maybe it's 4 years with Brady. So there is a history there. Another guy is James White, who's a little bit younger at age 29, 6-year history with Brady in New England. And his role's kind of been diminished a little bit. So I think whether it's Lewis or whether it's James White, and I would lean to White. He was the guy we had in our Bucs best bet for the running back preview section. Those are 2 very capable pass catching guys that could come in and be that third down back to certainly replace LaShawn McCoy on the roster. and then you've got a veteran that can catch the ball, in addition to Ronald Jones, in addition to Keyshawn Vaughn and Procise, who is not a lock to make this team by any means. But then you draft a running back in this draft class, and there's your stable for 2021.
Yeah, I mean, I see the James White and Dion Lewis allure to a degree, but I really think they might be. I mean, it's been a while since they were really guys you could count on. I know earlier in their careers, and running back is just such a position where youth is so much more superior. There's not many guys that have aged that well at the position, and I know they're not ancient, but and pass protection too. That's what I think about too. Pass protection, do they really help the team in that degree? I mean, I don't think they do at all, really. And that's something where, again, I'm not saying he's going to get signed, nor would I sign him. I would need to take a longer look than I have. But that's somewhere where Rex Burkhead's been really cut his teeth. I mean, it's a big reason why he's in the league right now. Plus, special teams impact as well is greater with him. And so, if one of those three Patriots guys does come to the Bucs, it's going to be what they cost is going to be a big part of it. And nobody's going to be cheaper than Rex Burkhead either, I don't think. And so I still think Burkhead could be the guy, honestly, even if it's, let's say, like LaShawn McCoy's gone. Let's say it's just Rojo and Vaughn, and they're looking for 2 or 3 backs to bring in. You know what I mean? I think Burkhead could be one of those guys. There could be another free agent, and there could be another rookie too. Cheap free agent.
You're right, John. I mean, let's look at the timetable. LaShawn McCoy wasn't signed until summer, before training camp, right? And then Leonard Fournette wasn't added until the first week of September, right? So you could sit there, sign James White, draft a running back, and then see how Burkhead's progressing. Because again, it might be a thing where teams stay away from him until the summer, given his age, given his injury. And if he gets a clean bill of health, then in the summer, then you add him and you say, all right, Rex, we're going to have you compete with James White, and we'll see which veteran pass catcher gets to stick around.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That could be the way that they look at it. They could keep 5. They could make Burkhead inactive. They could make White inactive. They could make Vaughn inactive if he's still not up. They could cut Vaughn. I mean, I wouldn't rule that out. I'm not saying those things are likely. But
here's Robert Farmer. Does Vaughn have potential? What are your thoughts on the very small sample size we saw, John? How would you define Keyshawn Vaughn going into year 2? We do know that Ronald Jones did not look heading into year 2 after a horrible rookie season anywhere like the Rojo we saw this past year, which is a pretty darn good running back.
Right.
But what's your thoughts on Vaughn based on what you saw last year during his rookie season?
Well, I'm a big believer that we can be very critical of a guy's performance in one season, but leave the door open for him to get better and improve. And so I leave that door open for Keyshawn Vaughn. I think he can be better than what he was this past season. There were a couple runs he had. There's some good ones. He had Lions. I mean, not sure the Lions were even playing defense, especially in the run game. I really don't think I've seen defensive lines just totally caved in the way that they were playing. It was ridiculous. But I think that, I mean, he did some good things as a runner, but again, ball security is huge. He didn't have that throughout minimal touches, which is very concerning when you project him out to, or is this a guy we want to give more opportunities to touch the football? Dropped a ton of passes, even ones that didn't go in officially as drops. He should have caught a couple of those. So really no way you could say it's anything other than disappointing. Somebody you can't count on, especially when you consider I also wasn't a huge fan of him coming out. I thought the Bucs had reached on him. We talked about that on the draft show at the time. I thought they reached when they didn't have a running back at that point. They felt like he was the best guy, and they reached for a need, which you never want to do, especially a running back. And so, I don't think he's going to be a major factor in Tampa Bay long-term, but I leave the door open for me to be wrong too. I'm not ruling the kid out. I'm not saying cut him. I'm not saying don't, give him a chance. Absolutely. You give him a chance because, there were moments, I think, the touchdown, I forget who it was against now. But there was moments of good things.
The touchdown was against the Chargers.
Yeah, that's right. In the comeback. Right. Yep. That was the first sign that was the first we'd seen of Vaughn at that point. So we leave the door open for him. Don't plan on it. That's my strategy with it. So you go into free agency, you look at the options. One option that's super attractive to me, Scott, is Duke Johnson. I don't know what the cost will be, but I just don't know if it's going to be very high. And, Duke Johnson his career is so interesting. Everywhere his career, he's been give him a bigger role, give him a bigger role, give him a bigger role. That's not going to happen. He is a guy that would be good to add to the room. I would still draft one. I'd still think it's an ego into the draft, but he gives you a pass catcher for sure, adequate protector. But he gives you a pass catching option who is proven he can make plays in space. He can run routes. He can do those kinds of things. He's proven that throughout his entire career. Yeah. He's not too old yet where it's past the point where he could contribute. And I think his price tag might be down because there hasn't been much recent success, and he's a running back. So I think in this offseason. So I think you're going to be able to find guys that are affordable, I think, and he could be one of the guys I would consider.
Yeah, another interesting name is Jerick McKinnon, who signed a big deal with the 49ers a couple years ago, then got hurt and really lost 2 years before coming back last year. He was a player the Bucs were very interested in as a pass-catching running back in Dirk Cutter's final season. But they lost out from a money standpoint to the 49ers. They got outbid. And it's just one of those things that they're – they're totally looking for a running back that can catch the ball. And this is a guy that can catch the ball.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I like Jerick McKinnon. I've actually every time I was watching a 49ers game this past year, I was like, man, I wonder if Jerick McKinnon's if he has it. Because remember, he was 2 years he missed basically with that injury. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I just don't know what. And then all of a sudden he'd have a good game and he breaks some tackles and he made people miss and he looked back to his normal healthy ways. Then he would barely play. And that's how Kyle Shanahan always is with running backs, but it's just so weird. There's a lot of his running backs actually are in free agency this year. And, I tend to say they're probably outside zone guys. I mean, that's really always where Tevin Coleman has thrived. Some of these guys have really been, same thing with Matt Breida. Some of these guys are really more, maybe a little bit of system backs to a degree. Mm-hmm. And so I'd be wary of that for that role. But again, as pass catchers, like that, you're talking about that kind of an impact. And I definitely think that's an area that, again, a couple of these guys, TJ Yeldon is another one. He is never going to be a great option for you in the running game. Right. But we're talking about very cheap. Remember, the Bucs don't have much space. That's right. Bottom of the roster type of players, type of contributors. And he's a guy that's been he's pass protected before. He's caught the football out of the backfield and done some of those kind of things. So again, I think it's cheap options that you're looking for to provide depth for the backfield. Yeah. But none of these guys are the answer, right, Scott? You're probably not finding the answer in free agency if you're the Bucs.
I think you're right. Two other names I want to throw out there, just because we've talked about some guys that might be able to catch the ball and maybe replace Fournette on third downs and LaShawn McCoy in that role. But if you're looking for a guy that can potentially split carries as well and kind of be more of that Fournette in terms of a guy that can help you on first and second down and really split time with Ronald Jones, there's two interesting names. Carolina's Mike Davis, a bigger back, 5'9", 221. At age 28, he's no spring chicken anymore, but he's coming off of a career-high 642 yards rushing and 6 touchdowns last year, where he had to play really as the starter for Christian McCaffrey,
good player, yeah.
Only suited up for a couple, games. But this is a player that caught 59 passes for 373 yards and 2 touchdowns. He made $3 million last year. He probably wants a pay increase, but with all of these running backs that are going to be in the draft class this year, plus some other guys in free agency like Fournette, like an Aaron Jones, who are going to get more money, I think Davis is going to be relegated to probably getting around $3 million and maybe even less again. And I think that he could be.
He worked Devin White. There was a route where he worked Devin White in the first game, I think it was.
In the first game, John, he had 8 catches for 74 yards against the Bucs in week 2. So I think that's a name to keep an eye on after the initial wave of free agency. He goes unsigned. Maybe he wants a ring. Maybe the Bucs get him for $1.5 to $2 million on a 1-year prove-it deal, and he can kind of be in the mix as well. Another guy that has gone against the Buccaneers twice this past season is Jamal Williams from Green Bay. Aaron Jones was the lead dog there. Then they drafted A.J. Dillon from Boston College, and he and Jamal Williams kind of got the scraps at the same time. This is a player that's rushed for no less than 460 yards in each of his 4 seasons in the NFL. So he can run the ball too. He's totaled 1,985 yards and 10 touchdowns running the ball over 4 years in Green Bay. And he's also had no less than 25 catches for 210 yards in any season. And last year, or I should say in total, he has 122 receptions for 961 yards. It's a healthy 8-yard average with 8 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a player.
Good pass protector too. Good pass protector.
Good pass protector. Yeah. 505 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns last year. He had a 4.2 average, caught 31 passes for 236.
Actually, I like that ad, Scott. I like that. That might be a Bucs best bet for your boy here. I like that.
It might be. And he's 25 years old. He stays healthy.
I loved him coming out.
Yeah. And really, again, because he has had modest production, he's not going to break the bank, I don't think, in free agency. Mm-hmm. So that's another name to keep an eye on.
Right. No, I agree with you. I don't think he'll break the bank either. The one thing I would say is that if Aaron Jones moves on, and I don't know if we know what's going to happen there yet, though I could see Green Bay trying to keep him. I know they drafted A.J. Dillon in the second round last year, but Jamal Williams is the guy they really value. They like him. They played him even with Aaron Jones being as good as he is, that he got to play and run the ball and catch the ball and protect. He's a better protector between he and Aaron Jones. That's a big reason why he saw the field. Funny thing about Jamal Williams actually is he's the guy that, if you remember, before the Packers Patriots game, he's the guy that was interviewed. I forget where he was. I'm sorry. I wish I could remember Packers. One of the Packers media things that's out there, podcast that's out there. They interviewed him before the game, and he said, "I know my quarterback would know what quarter it is or how many downs there are left." Right. He's like, "So I know my quarterback wouldn't be throwing the ball away." Right. He said something like that, joking, but obviously Bucs fans reacted. And then Rodgers comes out and throws the
Packers game
before the first Bucs Packers game.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So Greg DeCruz, please don't draft a running back in the first round. Bucs need depth along the defensive line, even if they re-sign Shaq and Sue. Listen, I'm all in favor of that in terms of getting depth, and I want them to take the best player available. But I'm going to have to retort here. Yes, I do think you should draft a running back in the first round if the right guy's there. My weapon of choice would be Javonte Williams from North Carolina. John, you had Najee Harris from Alabama in your first round mock draft for all 32 NFL teams. And the logic in drafting a running back is this. You're picking number 32. That's the end of the first round. The beginning of the second round is pick number 33. So you can look at pick number 32 as a first rounder. It's essentially a high second rounder. But the benefit that you get is you get the fifth-year option. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fifth-year option with a first-round draft pick, where that's beneficial for the Buccaneers. And I'm with you. I don't necessarily see the logic in drafting a running back in the top 5 or top 10 or top 20 even. But at 32, why not? Because you get that guy for 5 years.
And he's probably only valuable for 5 years either.
Probably only valuable for 5 years. And you get that running back. Imagine if Ronald Jones had another year, right? If this was year 4, but somehow, some way he got a 5th-year option, right? That would be great to have Ronald Jones, arrow pointing up in this year, and that you have him for one more year after that.
Sidebar: what if they didn't pick up his 5th-year option because he can't catch?
Well, that probably happens. That probably happens. But the thing is what I'm saying.
But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Like you want to get a running back and play him 4 or 5 years and then move on, just because the value at the position is not there with the second contract in terms of the amount of dollars you're going to spend and the production you're going to get. It's rare in this day and age that's the case, because the league is a passing league. Yeah,
for sure. And somebody asked, I'll see if I can find it in here. Somebody asked, would there be interest in Travis Etienne if he were to drop down the board? Oh, yes, there would be great interest in Travis Etienne. It was Daniel Orrs who asked that. Great interest in Travis Etienne if he drops down the board. I mean, I'm not kidding you guys when I tell you, and I'll write about it. As soon as we get through this free agency wave, I know everybody's tension there. I'll be writing about some of this stuff. But Travis Etienne and Najee Harris are pass-catching backs, the likes of which we just do not typically see. And I love Javonte Williams' tape, and he is a good pass-catching back. From what we've seen, he's fine in that role too. And there's guys we'll talk about in a minute as day 3 options that are good pass-catching options. But Najee Harris mosses guys down the field like a wide receiver for touchdowns. It's happened. It's on tape. What he does after the catch, I mean, crazy. Breaking tackles, jumping over guys. Travis Etienne, same thing. Contested catches, acceleration in space is unbelievable. So, yes, if you get the chance to add these guys to your teams, they should be consideration. Do I think running back is the spot I want to spend my first-round pick most of the time? No, but I'm also not naive enough to say no matter what, never do it. I don't know. I don't know who's going to be on the board. I watched most of the edge rushers in this class.
Right.
I don't think the ones I would value at 32 are going to be there. There's some developmental guys. Maybe they'd pan out with the Bucs. I don't know. Maybe there would be a big role eventually. There's going to be a big role eventually for Najee Harris or Travis Etienne this year.
And that's the key, because if you do re-sign Levante David, you franchise Chris Godwin, you re-sign Shaq Barrett, and Ndamukong Suh comes back, Gronk comes back. If those players alone come back, right? And Ryan Suckup, you better re-sign Ryan Suckup, Jason Light. If that happens, okay, where is your first-round pick going to get on the field from a value standpoint? Because the goal is to restock, reload, and go for another Super Bowl. And I get it, and I'm all about it. If you resign those players, though, where is the spot? Where is that first-round draft pick going to see meaningful snaps on the field in his rookie season? And even though he has 5 years, like on the clock with the fifth-year option, you don't want to burn a year and just have that guy on the bench, right? Unless you're drafting a quarterback for the long term, like the Packers did with Jordan Love. Okay, but the reality of it is running back is where that first-round pick can get on the field, share snaps, and play meaningful downs and reps. And you would need that because, again, you need to have a plan in place in case Ronald Jones has 1,200 yards rushing this year and gets a crazy, crazy contract in free agency. Then you say goodbye, and you have this guy in the hopper that he's played his rookie season. Maybe he gets 400 to 500 yards. Maybe he gets 600, whatever. And then he's your starter when Ronald Jones leaves in free agency in 2022.
Yep, it's exactly right. You have to have the plan B ready in place, or a new plan A, because literally Ronald Jones would have to single-handedly carry a Tom Brady-less Buccaneers team to the Super Bowl to get a second contract. I just honestly believe that. I mean, he is just not going to get a second contract in Tampa Bay.
And emerge as a third down weapon.
Right. I mean, yes, right. It would have to be a transformation, the likes of which, again, like it would just be a big, huge jump. And maybe it happens. We'll see. Right. Either way, I just don't think they're going to spend money on him. So there has to be, what's the plan after that? It could draft a running back next year. Sure. I mean, obviously don't reach at that position, but I'm just saying it has to be a priority. Again, your other positions of need. I mean, there are going to be options on the board. The trenches are where the Bucs really, I would say, need to draft. And that's where I would prioritize, even over running back. I would say, let's prioritize it, But if Najee Harris is on the board at 32 and you're in a Super Bowl window and the next year and two really matter, I mean, having a guy that can contribute it out of the backfield, especially as a receiver, the way he can, that turns those 2-yard gains into 6, 7, 8-yard gains, they don't have that. And that would have been a huge difference on their team this year if they had it. And so, and again, somebody said Brady's not going to check down with the Bucs. Brady doesn't check down when the receivers are bad. Like, he checks down when that's the right read. It's part of the read. It's not like a give up. It's part of the read. Like, if this happens, if this defender drops off on this route, he's throwing the flat, which some people would say is the check down. It's not always literally a check down when you throw to a running back. There's lots of ways to get him involved. Watch David Johnson under Bruce Arians in Arizona, and that's the kind of stuff Najee Harris, especially because I don't think Etienne's has a chance of being there. That's not the stuff Najee Harris. So Bucs fans, pray Najee Harris runs the 4.6 and he can be on the board like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is, because I don't care about speed at running back. I know he has all the things I care about.
Yeah. So Stash Love, it kind of picks up on that. You guys are putting way too much emphasis on running back catching out of the backfield. Brady checked down so much in New England because his receivers weren't good. Not the case here in Tampa. I agree with that, but also, John, what you're saying merits a lot of consideration too. Why? Because of what you just mentioned, David Johnson. You don't think that Bruce Arians, who was a former running backs coach and a quarterback at Virginia Tech, would love to run some wheel routes, to have some Texas routes for guys that can catch the ball? He does. He wants that. Some screen passes for sure. And that's where a guy like Kenneth Gainwell from Memphis,
I knew you were going to get there,
is an absolute stud. I mean, the interesting look at Gainwell here. He played 1 year at Memphis as a redshirt freshman. Actually played 2 years, but he played 4 games as a true freshman, then redshirted for the rest of the season after some spot production. But this is a guy that kept Patrick Taylor Jr. on the bench as a senior, and also Antonio Gibson pretty much forced him. And by the way, Gibson was a second-round pick by the Washington football team last year. And the Bucs loved him. Yeah.
Early third, yeah.
Yeah. But the reason, that's right. The Bucs were looking at him in the second round.
Right. They would have taken him in the second round if not for Winfield. Yeah.
but kept Antonio Gibson in a relegated running back role, actually forced him to play more wide receiver just to get Gibson on the field. Mm-hmm. So when you look at Gainwell's production in that 1 year at Memphis, which was 2019, he didn't play last year. He opted out due to COVID. 231 carries, 1,459 yards. That's a 6.3 average and 13 touchdowns. But what makes him so attractive, John, 51 catches. 51 catches, 610 yards. John, that's a sick 12.0.
And he played in the slot. We're talking about a diverse skill set here. I mean, some people have said he could be a receiver.
Yeah, he ran routes as a wide receiver. Just look at the Tulane game, right? He had 3 touchdowns, including 2 in that game. As a receiver, John, he had 18 carries, 104 yards, and a touchdown against Tulane, but he also caught 9 passes for 203 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the week before that, he had 106 yards on the ground and a touchdown. He had 8 catches for 98 yards against Temple. In his final game against Penn State, 9 carries, 34 yards against the stingy Penn State front 7 and a touchdown. But he had 7 catches, 78 yards. That's a healthy 11-yard average. So this is a player that the Buccaneers, I think, would really, keep an eye on, maybe in that middle round. It's interesting because he's only 5'11", 191 pounds. The Memphis Pro Day would be on March 19th. Is he over 200 pounds now? That's kind of like where you want to see running backs in terms of size. But he reminds me an awful lot of a former Kansas City Chiefs running back. Didn't really do much in the NFL as a first-round pick in 1987, I believe. But Bruce Arians knows him. He's Paul Palmer. He was a 5'9", 188-pound running back at a Temple. He's actually the Heisman Trophy runner-up back in 1986. And this is a cat that when I look at Kenneth Gainwell, reminds me a lot of Paul Palmer, a very versatile running back, undersized, good contact balance, can break and slip tackles, doesn't have the blazing speed that's going to just rip off 80-yard runs, although he has done a couple of long runs on his resume. But he's a guy that can consistently get the 20-yard dashes in the NFL, and that's more reasonable.
Right. Yeah, that's a good breakdown on Kenneth Gainwell. Another place where we do really good breakdowns is on Locker Room, which is a social audio app that is changing the way we talk sports. It's the only place for live audio conversations about the takes, rumors, news, and teams you care about. React to sports news as it happens. Gather all your friends and watch parties for the biggest games. Rep your favorite teams and find your community. Better sports talk is just a tap away. Download on the Apple App Store and join the conversation today. Locker Room, we had it on Tuesday night. It was great. Bucs briefing kind of breakdown, but also went into we had a lengthy discussion. It was we had 20, 25 people in there. I think at one point Rand was in there, Jack Barrett, who you see in the chat. Now they were in there, a couple others who probably are in this chat that I'm forgetting, but they were all in there. And there was a healthy discussion going on about whether the Bucs should prioritize re-signing Lavonte David, Chris Godwin, or Shaq Barrett, who they should prioritize, who they should prioritize the least out of those 3. It was a great discussion. There was lots of really good points being made, and we learned a lot. It was great. It was awesome. So if you're interested in those kind of things, fans out there, download Locker Room, follow Pewter Report. I'll get sent invites when we go live, and you'll be able to jump in and join some of the sweetest conversations on the web. So it's been a lot of fun. All right, so you talked about your guy Gainwell. I've talked about my guy Michael Carter on other podcasts from UNC. A good pass catcher, a good pass protector as well. That's something I value a lot, and I think that we need to make sure we're also thinking about when we think about this as the Bucs. I'm sure thinking about when we think about who this back's going to be. Courtney says thumbs up on Gainwell too.
Yeah. Spoiler alert: the Pewter Report mock draft, Bucs 7-round mock draft, comes out tomorrow, and it's version number 2. Gainwell is in it for the Bucs. Find out where he is tomorrow on pewterreport.com. He's a tremendous running back. We don't have Javonte Williams in this mock, but he might appear in my mock draft in my Bucs battle plan, John. I don't give away too much, but our battle plans start next week.
Right. I got
Monday. So we have the Pewter Report 7-round mock draft version 2.0 that comes out tomorrow instead of the Fab 5. And then next week we've got my Bucs battle plan, Mark Cooks, yours, Matt Materas, and Taylor Jenkins. So make sure you're locked into PewterReport.com tomorrow, all through the weekend, and all through next week, leading up to free agency, where we talk about what the Bucs should do in free agency and what we think each one of us comes up with their own mock draft. So it's a really cool insight to all of Pewter Reporters. Wheels are turning. What do we have the Buccaneers doing? That's next week on PewterReport.com in our Bucs battle plans.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one for sure. You know what else is a good one, Scott? I'm excited about this. We have a brand new sponsor on the podcast, playbookproducts.com. Check out these mugs. This is just one of the products they sell. If you go to playbookproducts.com, they sell mugs and coasters and stuff with the plays on them, the key plays from games that by your Bucs and by other teams too. If you're a fan of another team jumping in here, I know we have a lot of Patriots fans in here. Key plays and key moments in those franchises' history, they sell those plays. You can see the Rondé Barber pick 6 to shut down the vet here. Really they have it on a mug. It's so cool. Sweet. It's such a cool idea. So if you're a coffee drinker, go over to Playbook Products, check out some of their stuff that they have. They have coasters like this too with plays on them. They also have some more recent ones. I think the Scotty Miller touchdown against Green Bay's on there. They have some other plays that are more recent too. There's also some cool plays in Bucs history. So definitely check out playbookproducts.com. Check out some of their merchandise. We're going to have more of their stuff. They're sending us some stuff we're going to be able to show it to you guys on the show. We're going to talk about some of that stuff, but it's really cool stuff. Yeah, Courtney says their coasters are awesome. She's already familiar with it. It's really good stuff, though. So definitely make sure that you check out playbookproducts.com. We're proud sponsors of the Pewter Report podcast as well. Jack has wanted to know about Ramondre Stevenson. I've seen you mention this, Jack. I've seen a few runs of him. I got to watch more of Stevenson. There are some people who really like him. Yeah. When you say LeGarrette Blount, it makes me laugh because I saw one run and I was like, that's LeGarrette Blount. Like guys just literally hitting him and falling. Like it was just, it was crazy. It was like they can't tackle, but really I think it was just that's how big Stevenson is.
He's got a little bit of Najee Harris in him. He's a big target, not as tall as Najee. I think Najee is around 6'2". I think Stevenson's around 5'11". But Stevenson played around 240 pounds at Oklahoma. And when Trey Sermon left to go to Ohio State, he was the guy that they went ahead and replaced him as more of a feature back kind of guy, but yet didn't really earn the trust to be that every down feature back. They split the carries a lot of ways at Oklahoma. And I think he's an okay back. I think he had a decent Senior Bowl. Yeah. But I really think that he's probably a day 3 option. I don't expect him to run really fast. Right. I wouldn't rule him out, but he's not my draft crush. I've got a couple, and I'd be interested in dating him, but right now I'm seeing some other people.
This is very true of you. And when you say some other people, you mean people, plural. Oh, yeah. That's the way you roll with this running back class. Yes. So
I'm currently dating Javonte Williams, Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, and Kenneth Gainwell.
Kenneth Gainwell.
And if I have any more dates later in the week, then I'll pick up some others. So
Michael Carter, maybe somebody like that. Yeah, got you. Ren wants to know if we've looked at off-ball linebackers. So we are kind of going position by position. We touched this week on edge defenders on Monday. So if you're wondering about edge defenders, seen some people ask. Some people asked about Joseph Asai from Texas. Go back to Monday's listen. I talked about Asai specifically because he's the guy that commonly gets mocked to the Bucs. We also talked about defensive tackles on Tuesday. So if you're interested in defensive tackles, we touched on a couple draft options at 32. We touched on free agency options and the Bucs' current roster situation at defensive tackle. Wednesday, they did a Q&A yesterday with the guys. So check that one out. They might have talked about some of that stuff in there. And then today, we were focusing on running back. Next week, though, to kick off the week, we are going to explore a topic that no Bucs fan wants to think about, Scott. Life without Lavonte David, if it happens. God help us if it happens. But if it happens, we got to have you all prepared for some options at the position
and John, really, when you look at this, and if they lose Lavonte David, I mean, you can throw running back out of the mix at 32. I think they're looking at off the ball linebacker there at 32. Chaz Surratt from North Carolina is an interesting guy that really flashed to me as a Buccaneer type of linebacker who can really blitz.
Athletic.
And very athletic. Still a little lost in coverage, but this is a guy that was a converted quarterback. So he's still learning how to play defense, but very good athlete. But speaking of insurance policies, John, it's not just drafting a linebacker at 32 in case Lavonte David leaves the Buccaneers would have their bases covered, because while I would love to see them re-sign Kevin Minter, he's more of a special teams guy and kind of a fill-in guy. We saw Minter play pretty decent football for a couple games when White missed some games due to COVID. But the real insurance play is over at Briar Greaves, John. I think that's
yeah, absolutely. Talk about our friends over at Briar Greaves. That's where the play is. What
a world this has been in this past 2020 season. God, I even hate mentioning 2020, other than the Bucs had a really good year, because it was a bad year for pretty much everybody else, including people in the insurance world, because there's a record number of named storms, with over 30 storms, flooding in different parts of the country, in addition to wildfires. Then you had the polar vortex hit Texas in the Midwest in early 2021, not to mention the whole pandemic that's still gripping the country. So with commercial property and homeowner rates, they're increasing as a result due to the industry, all these catastrophes. It's more important than ever to double check your insurance policy, and you can do that at Briar Greaves. Briar Greaves is the company that I trust for my home insurance, and I want to tell you about them. You can learn more at BriarGreavesInsurance.com. You can give them a call, talk to Sam and Briar. They're big Buccaneer fans and proud sponsors of the Pewter Report podcast. Their number is 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166. Life insurance, commercial insurance, homeowners insurance, auto insurance, and even boat insurance here in Florida. Only one place to turn, Briar Greaves Insurance. Check them out at BriarGreavesInsurance.com.
Good questions here about linebackers. I know people already want to get into it. Somebody mentioned Nick Bolton. Leroy Williams mentioned Nick Bolton. Definitely we'll be talking some Nick Bolton. I've got some Nick Bolton things to say on Monday. So we will dive deep into linebacker. We'll have a lengthy discussion there on Monday. We'll kick off the week in style. Tell your friends, tell your family, subscribe to the Pewter Report podcast, Pewter Report TV on YouTube. Send us your super chats when you can. Super chats fell off a little bit since the Bucs won the Super Bowl. That doesn't mean we still need money over here.
Yeah.
Bucs might have their Super Bowl bonuses, but we didn't get any. We didn't get any rings, nothing. So no, appreciate you all for sure. But we'll talk about Zaven Collins. Ren saying the Tulsa kid could be really special. Look at Ren. He's acting like an NFL scout, the Tulsa kid. Can't say his name. Don't remember him. I know what bar he goes to. I know, what kind of shoes he wears. I know what girl he's dating, but I don't I don't remember his name though. Yeah. Can't remember. That's a classic scout move by Red Dax there. I love it. So we'll have some good stuff lined up for Monday's podcast. We'll launch in a linebacker. We'll touch on wide receivers next week and talk about Chris Godwin. By the way, we haven't even mentioned this. Deadline for Chris Godwin is the 9th, right? For the tag. What's the 9th? Yeah. Is that a Tuesday? I don't remember.
It's Monday, I believe.
Monday. Okay, Monday. All right. So the deadline for Godwin of the franchise tag, I think, is Monday. So that's an obvious one that we're going to have our eye on. They usually go right
Tuesday. My bad.
Is it Tuesday? Okay. All right. They're going to go. Those usually go down to the wire. That's how they do it. Try to work out the deal as long as you can, even if you haven't talked. I don't understand it, but so we'll have our eye on that one. We expect that one to happen. We'll also continue to talk about Shaq Barrett, Levante David, as the focus will eventually shift to those guys as we expect, along with Gronk and AB. So we'll keep talking about those guys and sprinkling in that conversation. The other thing I want to mention is that if you're wondering who the Bucs are meeting with, what prospects they're meeting with pre-draft, go over to pewterreport.com, bookmark the page. I put it up today, the meeting tracker so far. We know of 3 meetings. Defensive tackle Darius Stills from WVU. Offensive tackle might be an offensive guard. Tevin Jenkins from Oklahoma State. He's probably a first-round target if he gets there to the Bucs. That would be an upset, but might happen. And cornerback Greg Newsome from Northwestern. Another guy who could be an option at 32 or in 64, somewhere in that range of the draft, first or second round guy getting that kind of buzz right now. Not sure the Bucs will draft a corner that high, but they met with him virtually. So it's worth noting. We'll continue to update that as we hear with everything we hear, and we'll continue to repost it at the top of the site when we do update it. But definitely bookmark that page so that you can keep, who are the Bucs met with?
For this year, John, because usually we're at the Combine. We ask these players if they met with the Buccaneers. That's one of the things we do at pewterreport.com. So no Combine this year. Everything's virtual. So we are placing calls, scouring the internet, looking for the reports, doing our own research, trying to find out which players the Bucs have met with, because that's a pretty good indicator. And and as John said, we'll be updating that all throughout this entire process leading up to the draft.
Right, absolutely. Jack wants to know if we'll be doing an O-line show. Yeah, I think we'll do linebackers on Monday, O-line on Tuesday. We'll probably have Wednesday. We'll talk probably wide receivers, maybe mix in some tight end talk into that one. And this is if no breaking news happens, obviously, or something like that. We'll mix in the draft chatter as we do at all these positions. And then on Thursday, we'll probably have a guest on, have somebody in mind actually for that show. So it's going to be a fun time. So as always, thank you guys for another great week and for listening to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.